8th grade math test 4 study guide, problem number 1. We're going to simplify 16 plus negative 305. Those are opposite teams, right? This is addition, so we can use teams. 16 positives, 305 negatives means I subtract to get the difference between opposite teams. We subtract. I put the bigger absolute value on top. Before I can borrow here, I got to go over here. There's nothing there, so I have to go way over here, make this a 10 first. And then I can borrow from it to make that a 15. So I get 289, but I ask myself who has more. There are more negatives than positives, so that's why this is negative 289. Number 2, we have 125 take away 98 minus negative 6. Let's do the rule for subtraction. Add the opposite, do 2 sticks each time so we can use teams. 125 positives, 98 negatives, 6 more positives, a total of 131 positives and 98 negatives. So, opposite teams subtract. So I take the bigger absolute value, put it on top. Borrow if I need to. Borrow again. And I say there are more positives than negatives this time. So this time it's positive 33. As opposed to a negative answer, right? Who has more? Number 3, 2 and 4/10 take away 8 and 1/10 times negative 3. When I multiply, I got to multiply first before I subtract. And when I multiply, I want to make sure to pretend there are no decimals and just multiply. Okay? Then I can count the decimal spaces, add it later, and then check my sign. Positive times negative, right? Using Mr. Dude's negative. So I have 2.4 minus, this was negative 24 and 3/10, right? That's a negative. Then I can do add the opposite. Now we're on the same team, so I'm going to add them. I line up my decimals, drop the decimal down. I get 26 and 7/10 is the answer. Problem number 4. Problem number 4, we have 3/5 times 1/9. So I do my factor trees, cross out my 1s, and my answer will already be done. Simplified, that was fun. Number 5, I got 2 times 3 times 3 times 5 over 3 times 7 times 7 times 7 over 5 times 7 times 7. I'm just going to cross out my 1s. If I got a 7 on top and bottom, I can cross those out, right? I got a 5 on top, 5 on bottom, I can cross it out. I got 3s, I can cross out. Whatever's left gets multiplied, there's our answer. Number 6, negative 7/10 divided by negative 2/3. So negative 7/10 times negative 3 over 2. So I can make this multiplication. If I flip this upside down, that's called multiply by reciprocal, right? AKA keep, change, flip. So I go negative 7 over 2 times 5 over negative 3 over 2. And there's nothing in common. So all I got to do is multiply these since there are no 1s to cross out. I go negative times negative is positive. On the top I got 21. On the bottom I got 20ths. And every now and then, and on this test I still have it, but you know, it's okay to have improper fractions. But every now and then, just to make sure you remember how to do it, I'll have you convert that, right? So I go in and out to convert it. Even though it's already simplified, we're going to convert this now to 1 and 1/20. So number 7. Number 7, we have 5/8 plus 4/5. Now, we're going to need to get a common denominator. So the LCD is 40. The first time these 8 and 5 are going to be the same as 40. So I multiply the top and the bottom by 5. It's got to be the same number top and bottom, but not the same number over here as this, just the same number top and bottom. So if I multiply this by 8, I got to multiply this by 8 also. Okay, so I got 25/40 and 32/40. When I combine those two, I have 57/40. And check to see if you can reduce it. You can't, but you can convert it. We wouldn't waste our time normally unless I didn't see my answer on the test. In that case, then I would convert it, which you will see less and less as the year goes on. So I divide, I take my remainder, put it up top, put my divisor on the bottom, and I get 1 and 17/40 as the answer. Number 8, 2/7 take away 1/3. Again, we need a common denominator. If I go 7 times 1, 7 times 2, 7 times 3, the first time the multiples of 7 and the multiples of 3 will be the same is at 21. So I want these both to say 21 on the bottom. So I do add the opposite. Now that I have the same bottom number, which means the same size pieces, now I can add my numerators, my top numbers. And I got 6 positives, 7 negatives. Opposite teams mean subtract. Who has more? Number 8. The answer is negative 1/21. Okay, over here, we are on number 9 now. Number 9 says we need to simplify negative 8 divided by negative 1 2/3. So I go negative 8 divided by, make it a fraction first. That's 3 times 1 plus 2. It's not 3 times negative 1 plus positive 2. This is all one number, so that sign applies to the whole thing, not just to the negative. That's not just a negative 1 with positive 2/3. That's not how it goes. So multiply. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 2 is 5. So the whole thing is negative. That's negative 5/3. Make everything a fraction. Multiply by reciprocal. Put the negative on top. There's nothing in common. Multiply. This is an okay answer. And negative times negative is positive. 25/4 is the answer. And that one I didn't make you convert. 10. We're going to simplify. Oh, what am I talking about? So that was 10. All right. So you're all confused right now, wondering what I'm talking about, because I accidentally skipped number 9 and went to number 10. So this is 10. Okay. Alrighty. We just did number 10. Okay. Now we're going to go back in time, back to the future, and we're going to do number 9. I'm sorry about that. Lo siento. So I go 3/4 plus negative 6 1/2. So I got number 9. Okay. 3/4 plus negative, convert this, 13/2. Need a common denominator to add. So I get negative 26/4. Remember, just put the negative up top, right? Oop, holy moly, let me make sure you guys can see. Now, I got the same bottom number, so I carried over. I can do teams since it's addition. 26 negatives, 3 positives, that's a difference of 23. But who has more? We always ask ourselves who has more. There's more negatives than positives. So number 9, which I didn't do on time, is actually negative 23/4. Now we're going to jump over to number 11, because I don't like to do anything in the right order. Number 11, find 2 square roots of the number 49. Well, 7 times 7 is 49, but also negative 7 times negative 7. Remember, Mr. Dude, that's also. So it's plus and minus 7. 2 answers. Number 12 says a square room has 196 square tiles. How many tiles are along the edge? So in other words, they're asking what's the length from here to here. So this is a square, which means if this is x, this is x2. In other words, that's one of those x squared equals 196 problems. So I take the square root of both sides, and normally it should be plus and minus, right? And the number I would multiply to itself to get 196 is 14, right? We memorize, remember in class, we memorized 15 times 15 is 225. That's a little too big, so I try 14, and 14 works. But we can't do the negative because the distance can't be negative. So normally plus and minus, but this time it's just 14 because it's a distance. Alright, I hope I don't skip another problem now. Let me see. From 11, we'll go to number 13. Just kidding. We did number 12, so now we'll do 13. Number 13 is, we're going to simplify the square root of 4 plus the square root of 64. Square root of 4 is 2. Square root of 64 is 8. The answer is 10. Number 14, write the fraction 3/7 as a decimal. So I go in and out, right? That's what division's all about. So 7 doesn't go into 30, but it does. Oh, wait a minute, what am I talking about? 7 doesn't go into 3, but it does go into 34 times. Multiply those. Drop down to 0. 7 goes into 20 about 2 times. Multiply those. Drop it down. Oh my goodness. 7 goes into 60 about, let's see, does it say we can round? No. Man, that's not very nice. Okay, so we got to do this ridiculous, silly number. Not very nice. I apologize for that. We're going to keep doing this, right? It's going to keep going. You're going to get an 8, then a 5, then a 7, then a 1. Then it's going to repeat. That is horrible. Sorry about that. I didn't realize. I actually got that one from a test generator. Most of my questions I write, but that one I just got from a test generator, so I have to keep making up fractions every week. And they gave you a not a very nice one. But that's how you would do it. If you're doing this on a test and you got to where I did, there's only one of them that's going to work. The rest of them, you know, aren't going to be, after you do 2 decimal places, you could stop and just pick your answer anyways. Okay. Number 15. 1 and 1500ths as a fraction or mixed number. So watch the way I said it. I said 1 and 1500ths. So now it's a mixed number. So what I'm going to do there for number 15 is I'm going to reduce the fraction part. 15 is 3 times 5. 100 is 10 times 10. Cross out my 1s. I get 1 and 3. Remember, look for your 10s. That's 10 times 2. 10 times 2 is 20. So it's 1 and 3/20. Okay? The only reason I didn't convert this and reduce it that way and write it as an improper fraction is because when I looked at my answers, I know that they had a mixed number there. Okay? So I know I'm trying to get you guys to go away from that, but on this test, I have a lot of those on there. 16. We're going to express 25 thousandths as a fraction. Tenths, hundredths, thousandths, right? That's how it goes. So I write 25 over 1,000. Since you read it, 25 thousandths. Okay? Whoops. 1,000. 3 zeros, Carbajal. So 25 thousandths. Okay? Then I do my factor trees. That's 5 times 5. This is 10 times 10 times 10. Am I right? So I got 10 times 10 times 10. Cross out my 1s. No, those are 1s, so there's 1 on top. There's 1 on top. You have to write it. You can't just get rid of it. It's on the bottom. You get rid of it. Look for your 10s. Here's 10 times 4. 10 times 4 is 40. So the answer is 1/40. Number 17. We're going to solve x squared equals 361. Woohoo! So I'm going to take the square root of both sides. I get plus and minus. And we memorize, remember you guys, we memorized 15 times 15. So that's 225. So that's pretty close. So I just try a couple more numbers and eventually I'm going to see that 19, what am I talking about? Yeah, 19 and negative 19 equal 361. There's my answer. All right, number 18. We're going to solve x cubed equals negative 125. So what do I multiply 3 times to get negative 125? Well, I take the cubed root of both sides. Now that's x. And whatever I multiply 3 times, negative times negative times negative 3 times is a negative. So it's got to be negative something. 5 times 5 is 25 times another 5 is 125. So the answer is negative 5. 19. Which two integers does rad 216 lie in between? So I'm going to look at the perfect squares that surround 216. All right. So let's narrow it down. 10 times 10 is 100. Too small. 20 times 20, 400. Too big. This is closer to 10, though. Remember, we memorized 15 squared. We know that's 225, right? That's real close, but just a tiny bit too big. So chances are 14 times 14 is going to be real close. 14 squared is 196, right? And remember, we did that earlier, so if you remember the problem you did earlier in a test, you can use that information. There's 196 is too big. It's too small. 15 squared, we know that, is too big. So it's in between 14 and 15. 14 and 15. Those are the two integers it lies in between. Because those are the two perfect squares, it lies in between. Number 20. Alright, which range contains rad 300 minus 2 plus 11? So let's simplify this first. Add the opposite. Let's do teams, okay? I got 300 positives, 2 negatives, 11 positives. Total of 311 positives and 2 negatives. Opposite teams mean subtract. I got the square root of 309. Like we did up here, square root of 309, we're going to kind of figure out the value for that. So the square root of 309, well, we already did some work earlier, right? We know that 20 times 20 is 400, so it's pretty close to that. Let's try, let's see, let's try maybe a little bit less than 20. Let's try maybe like 18. 18 times 18, and this isn't going to work, so I'll show you what to do when it doesn't work. So that's just a little bit too big, so that's why I choose 17 times 17. $289. That's a little too small. So I know this is in between 17 and 18, right? So this is in between 17 and 18. But which one is it closer to? Is it closer to 18 times 18? And I can answer that question by subtracting. It's 15 away from this. Or is it closer to 17 squared? I can subtract it. That's 20, a difference of 20. So it's actually closer to this one. It was closer to this one. It's closer to 18 than 19. So it's like 18 point something, but not bigger than 18.5, right? Closer to 18, I look at my answers. The only one that's closer to 18 and not 19 has to be D, but, which is wrong. They say it's A. Okay. What am I talking about? Okay, so anyways, let's see here. What did I do wrong? I'm trying to finish here, and I did something wrong. 300 plus negative 2. Okay, we'll go on to 11. Alrighty then. 309. Okay, so 17 squared. I must have messed up with 18 squared was too big. 289 subtract, that's a difference of 20. Over here, 224, no, that's okay. So the difference for these guys is, but 18, oh man alive. Oh my land. Okay, so here's my mistake. So it is closer to 18, but it's not bigger than 18. It can't be 18 point something. Sorry about that, you guys. It's got to be smaller than 18. Okay, I apologize. Hope I didn't mess you up there. So it's 17 point something because it's in between 17 and 18. Closer to 18, so it's going to be like 17 point. See, the 17s are closer to 8. Whoops, here we go. These 17s are closer to 18. All right, sorry about that last one. We're finished.